Okay, people, don't get too excited. Today's topic is irregular subjunctive. So for today's purposes, we're going to kind of categorize these irregulars into two types. First is just straight irregular subjunctive. The other are stem changing verbs. So they're not really all that irregular, they're just stem changing and they've got some special rules. In order to remember the irregulars, we are going to use the acronym DISHES. The D stands for dar, the I stands for ear, S stands for saber, H is aber, E is a star, and the second S is ser. Let's start with dar. The yo form of dar is de, with an accent. Tú is des. Ella y usted is de. Nosotros is demos. And the ellos, ellas, ustedes form is den. Ir is very similar to the command form of the verb. We start with vaya, vayas, vaya, vayamos, and vayan. Saber is again like the command form, so it just starts with sepa, sepas, sepa, sepamos, and sepan. Aber is just aya, ayas, aya, ayamos, and ayan. A star is again like the command form, and it's important that you pay attention to the accents. So we've got este, estes, este, estemos, no accent, and estén. Again, like the command form, sea, seas, sea, seamos, and sean. Now let's talk about stem changing verbs in the subjunctive. It's important that we qualify the different types of verbs into different sections. So if you take a stem changing verb that's either AR or ER, typically they have stem changes from U to UE and E to IE. IR have stem changes from E to IE, E to I, and O to U. And this is going to be important information for you to remember for the next step, so make sure you have it written down. AR and ER stem changing verbs stem change in all forms but the nosotros forms. So if we're looking at the yo form of the subjunctive for the verb jugar, we're going to stem change it because it stem changes in all forms but the nosotros forms. So here we would make sure that we change the stem and we have juegue. However, in the second one, if we're conjugating the nosotros forms, we need to make sure that we don't stem change it because AR and ER stem changing verbs stem change in all forms but the nosotros. So the subjunctive form of jugar in the nosotros is juguemos. There's a special rule for stem changing IR verbs. Stem changing IR verbs stem change in all forms, but there is a special rule in the nosotros and vosotros forms of the verb. So the special rule for IR stem changing verbs is that they stem change one-to-one in the nosotros and vosotros forms. If you recall back to this, you remember that we have a couple different types of IR stem changing verbs. We have E to IE, which is 1 to 2 letters. We have E to I, which is 1 to 1, and we have O to UE, which is 1 to 2 letters. But as I said, in the nosotros and vosotros forms, they're only going to stem change one letter to one letter. So that means we need to keep an eye out for stem changing verbs that are E to IE and O to UE stem changing verbs. If we wanted to look at an example like sentir, which is an IR verb, its stem changes E to IE, and we want to conjugate it, we need to remember that it stem changes in all forms, but has a special rule for the nosotros and vosotros forms. So if we want to put it in the subjunctive, we're going to put it in the yo form, drop the o, and add the opposite ending. And we're going to do that for all forms but two, the nosotros and the vosotros forms. So now I've gotten to the nosotros forms, and I need to remember that it's only going to stem change 1 to 1 in the nosotros and the vosotros forms. So that means that it stem changes from E to I. And we get sintamos. If we want to do the vosotros forms, we get sintais. And lastly, we go back to stem changing for the ellos, ellas, ustedes form of the verb, and we get sientan.